Hello and welcome to the first lesson in this course. This lesson is all about adjustment layers, and I love adjustment layers. Adjustment layers allow you to edit your images non-destructively. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you go to edit your image and let's say you select the exposure adjustment and you make the adjustment to your image to be brighter, like I'm doing now, and then you save that file, close it, and then tomorrow you come back and you open the image again and you realize, holy crap, I overexposed the image and it looks horrible. Well, guess what? You can't fix it because you edited the original image in a way that was destructive and it's permanent. What you've done by editing this way is you affected the pixels of the original image and then you saved the original with that particular edit. The alternative, which I highly recommend, is to work non-destructively with adjustment layers. So let's take a look at the bottom of your layers panel and you will see a bunch of icons. If you click on this one here, you will see all 16 types of adjustment layers that you can apply to edit your image. One of which is exposure, and I'm going to go ahead and select exposure. And when I do, we add a new layer above the image layer, and this is our exposure adjustment layer. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the exposure like I did before. I'm going to save it this time as a PSD file, which is necessary in order to keep all the layers intact. And then I'm going to close the file, then reopen that PSD file, and we can see we still have our exposure adjustment layer that we created previously, and I can go back in there and adjust the exposure as needed. It's a huge time saver and it's very important to my workflow, and it should be a part of your workflow as well. Anytime you can use an adjustment layer to make your edit, I highly recommend using them versus using the destructive method. Now, some will say, well, couldn't I just make a copy of the original image and make my edits on it? Absolutely. But the problem is, if you start editing your image in that manner and you adjust the exposure, you adjust the levels, you adjust curves, you adjust hue and saturation, then you go back and you adjust levels again, and then you adjust curves again. Well, the problem is if you mess up or you don't like the edit, you can't go back and make any adjustments. You can't tweak those edits because you've applied them directly to the pixels of your image. So even if you have the original, you would have to start all over again if you didn't like the first edit you did, or maybe you don't like the fourth edit out of 10. At least with adjustment layers like this image here, we can see we have multiple adjustment layers, and I can go in at any time of the editing process and choose any one of the specific adjustment layers and tweak the edits as needed for that particular image. How cool is that? I love it. All right, another cool thing we can do is we can copy these adjustment layers or these adjustment edits, whatever you want to call them, to another image by dragging and dropping that layer onto another image, and thereby streamlining your workflow by copying a specific edit from one image to another. Plus, there's a lot of other things we can do besides just making adjustments to the adjustment layers. For example, we can change the opacity of that specific layer if we want to decrease the intensity of that adjustment layer. We can also arrange the layers, and this can give you different types of outcomes and effects. And we can use adjustment layer masks that will allow us to precisely control where our edits are being applied. And we're going to talk more about adjustment layer masks in the next lesson because I love masks just as much as adjustment layers, maybe a little bit more. So we're going to learn more about those in the next lesson. So if you're ready, let's do it.